Hey guys and gals, I wanted to do a little video here about our market update that we've started here at Bulk Loads. Uh, just explain a little bit more and put a little more input than what you see on the slides you get in the email there. So I'll start off this morning with the uh, the load board postings. So we've been noticing this quite a bit. The postings have been going down over the last couple of weeks. The harvest takes a lot of that. A lot of the farmers, individuals, don't post those loads on the load board. Plus, a lot of the grain is being moved to the elevators at the moment. Lots of the spot freight postings you'll see on the load board are from elevator to elevator, in between mills and stuff like that. So out of the field, most of that stuff is hired from local guys, not so much looking for outside help. Uh, I think here in the next couple weeks, once harvest starts to wrap up, from everything I've heard from guys on the load board and farmers around the country, is that harvest is going pretty well. Um, Other than the port strike, I did hear of a couple of soybean farmers that had uh, put a stop to their harvest. They didn't have bin space, and most of that stuff was going directly to the port to be exported. So they put a halt on some of their harvest, just to keep it in the field, not have to pay bin costs per bushel and all that kind of stuff. Um, we'll go on to the grain spot rates here. Harvest is also affecting this quite a bit. Um, I've heard a lot of guys mocking the 650 a mile rates on there. Uh, I was surprised as well because we all know that over the road stuff is not doing that right now, or ever really. Uh, Most of that stuff on those loads, those are less than 100 miles, quite a few of them less than 50 miles. Uh, this all comes from Smart Freight Funding. So we track mileage on that kind of stuff. So for your longer hauls, it's going to be quite a bit less. But with how much freight is moving within 100 miles of its origin, those rates are going to go up quite a bit, especially with wait times. I've seen lots of pictures on Facebook of, 15, 20, 30 trucks in line telling you to bring your Vienna sausages, your little smokies, and find you a good podcast to listen to as well. Um, that's really been affecting these grain rates on the load board at the moment. Fertilizer as well. I've got a friend who works with some fertilizer companies. They're starting to get fertilizer in for fall applications once crop is out. They're starting to stockpile at some of their facilities as well on that. So those rates are going to be getting higher with the need increasing for guys to haul that fertilizer as well. Also compounded by a harvest that is taking truck capacity. So there's more demand and capacity staying the same, uh, increasing those rates as well. Feed ingredients um, increased a little bit. They're pretty consistent from what I've seen. Uh, Cattle market's still high. Uh, all meat is pretty expensive at the moment. I suspect with the hurricane in North Carolina, South Carolina, a lot of chicken production, turkey production around those areas. So I wouldn't hesitate to see if maybe some of that product was lost with flooding, or even turkey and chicken barns being blown down, uh, causing some disruption in that feed ingredient spot rates. Another thing is the Fed, we've all seen it, has cut rates to try to impact inflation a little bit. Consumer spending across the board has been pretty low. They're wanting to stimulate the economy a little bit with that. Uh, I saw some forecasts the other day. They're looking for it to drop all the way into May next year. Uh, with realtors, I've been talking to them a little bit, and they think that there's going to be a pretty big uh, capacity for houses, at least, coming onto the market. Uh, People wanting to spend more money. not holding on to it quite as tight, not having to spend it all on interest for new houses as well. Along with new houses, people buy new cars. Uh, Fuel consumption goes up. People going on vacations, so you could see some stimulation with grain prices. I would think maybe some ethanol production, biodiesel with diesel consumption, more of those Amazon trucks, those shipping containers coming from the ports, delivering your packages and everything. So with the Fed cutting rates like this as well, it'd be a little easier to buy some new trucks. I know a lot of guys have been holding off on buying new equipment recently. The thing with that is you're going to make the payments in either a payment for a new truck or maintenance. I watched a video the other day from Wild Goose, diesel mechanic I follow on Facebook, about some of the new transmissions being unserviceable. Uh, we'll have new EPA regulations forcing guys to get new trucks, and also inflating the price of those used trucks. They've been pretty stagnant here recently with rates being so high. It doesn't make sense to buy a used truck like that. But if maintenance costs are going to go through the roof with a lot of the uh, DPF, um, D, DPF, DEF, a lot of those systems not being serviceable in your home shop or at the local truck mechanic, you'll have to go to dealerships, or even just it's moving towards the just completely replacing parts. There's no diagnostics that can be done or anything like that. Most of it's just plug and play. We'll move on here to the bulk carrier numbers. I pulled some numbers from bulk carriers for hire from FMCSA the other day to just kind of see the outline of total across the United States and their distribution. So as you can see, our map, a lot of those carriers are in the central United States. And if you ever look on bulk loads, the loads by origin or destination, a lot of those are going to be in the central United States. We deal with a lot of bulk ag commodities, fertilizer, feed, grain, all that stuff originates and drops off in the central United States to feed the meat production or the grain production, which then gets exported to the coast for either consumers or overseas markets. I have been seeing a lot of loads headed into Eastern PA, which sparked my interest. Talked to a couple of guys around the office that had been out that way recently, and they said Ohio, West Virginia, Northern Virginia until recently had been pretty dry. Crop wasn't doing quite as well. And with Pennsylvania being a hub of ports, railroad, and interstates, a lot of that stuff goes into that Lancaster area to be shipped out to other locations or even processed there. As you can see as well, the bulk carrier numbers over the last couple of years, as you would expect, spiked with COVID, hit a high in January or December of 2023, and then have slowly dropped off. So we're still around 3,000 to 4,000 more carriers than we were at the start of COVID in the bulk space. I foresee that going down is here pretty consistently. It could be a couple more years even before we see it come back to a before COVID rate. That being said, record harvest, you could diversify with what you're hauling. A lot of whole produce, so apples, potatoes, stuff like that in the western states that are options for guys. The big one is that draws your eye is Texas right there. My guess is the distribution of carriers in Texas is pretty consistent with any other state. Just the size of it draws a sheer number quite a bit more than any other state. But you can see there Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska. Uh, those are all where a lot of these for hire carriers are. Uh, as anyone would suspect, it's going to be farmers that have a couple hoppers. You need some work in the meantime, as well as just strictly trucking companies. That's where the product for the hopper loads are. So that's pretty much what you expect with the distribution on there. So we have a couple of maps here. Corn harvest is progressing pretty well. Hasn't changed much from last week that I've seen. Looks like a lot of guys are switching over to soybeans and starting to harvest in the northern states as well, to get those crops out before winter sets in, and let the corn dry a little bit more as well. So loads by origin trend. The last couple of weeks I'd done state by state. Honestly, it was a little bit confusing in my mind. So I split it up by region here as a suggestion from one of the carriers on the load board. The East Coast, with the port strike, with the hurricanes, their crop is going to be moving out of there more and into there, coming from the Indiana, Ohio areas, from what I've seen, into that Pennsylvania, or even all the way over to the ports. The central U.S., we're starting to see a little bit of that grain come out of the fields and the local co-ops into some other larger facilities. Out west, they're pretty consistent. Not as much of the grain crop coming out of there. Apple production, potato production, beets, stuff like that is going to be increasing as well. In the south there, there's quite a bit of that grain that's coming out of there. More of the Oklahoma, Texas area, Georgia as well. But with the Milton and Helene, I suspect that those areas are going to be hard to get into and out of, just with road closures. I talked to one of the insurance account techs. Her boyfriend is a lineman. He's in Florida right now, and they've got around 3 million people without power there. So I would just keep an eye on that when you're bidding lanes down there. You're probably going to have to take some longer routes to get down there. Facilities loading and unloading, you're going to have some troubles. Service with cell phones, all sorts of stuff. Infrastructure is going to be down quite a bit. So when you're pricing yourself for those regions, I would take that into account as well. I did a list here. I remember a lot of times as a kid watching my mom helping my grandpa that was on the road look at road closures in the old Google Map days, sending him a picture on a flip phone. I came across this NOAA website that has all of the individual state DOTs information on road closures. So that'll be really helpful, especially I've heard a lot of talk about this being a pretty harsh winter, especially out west. Around here, I know the persimmons are calling for cold and snowy. So I'll be prepared with that kind of stuff. If you're planning on going out west, getting your trucks ready, help my father-in-law the other day. He was checking everything to make sure that he could go through those mountain passes if need be, if loads come up. As well, I think the market for the bulk trucking is on the rise. It might look a little stagnant at this point, but I'd say towards the end of the year and into next spring, we'll see quite a bit of movement. I'd suspect that rates are probably going to go up. The big market is going to be watching your costs. So those interest rates are going to be helpful. Possibly looking at a new truck to help with maintenance cost, taxes, making sure that you're using your taxes to your benefit, using bulk loads, smart freight as deductions. Keeping those costs down is the name of the game at the moment. And if you have any other questions, you can reach me at support@reply.bulkloads.com or nick@bulkloads.com. And I'll leave you with the closing words of Tommy Boscher's, keep it between the ditches.